feedback and perhaps the reasons for their bills, and we really appreciate it. So thank you all for your service to the City of Carver. All right. With that, we have a new-ish employee to recognize. Nick, why don't you come on up? Nick Jorgensen is the newest member. Well, I don't know. Aaron, do you want to introduce Nick? I mean, we know Nick. So
I usually say he's the new old.
Okay. New old guy?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I think so.
And Nick is our new building official.
Yeah.
Been with the City of Carver for a month.
A month, yeah.
Plus a couple years?
Year and a half before
Okay.
that, yeah, as a building inspector.
All right. Well, we're so happy to have you back. Nick, as you learned only a few minutes ago, since you were new the last time around, we have a tradition of doing 2 truths and a lie with new employees to kind of get to know everybody a little better. Are you game?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'll
Have
to
at it.
switch
And then
them up from last time.
everybody in the room, we haven't done this really with folks in the room. So we all can play along. So you raise your fingers which one you think is the lie. So no pressure, Nick, but there are people here paying attention.
All right, you guys ready? So I've shaken Justin Morneau's hand. I'm deathly afraid of snakes. My high school mascot was a goat.
All right, show of hands.
Which one's the lie? You're from North Dakota, right?
Okay, we've got a
lots of
really good variety, but I'm seeing a lot of 3s. Oh, Aaron's got number 1. A lot of city staff with not 3. Okay, which one's the lie?
My high school mascot is a tornado, not a goat.
And then on Sundays in the fall when football is on, who do you cheer for?
Kind of feel like you teed that one up for me. But the Green Bay Packers is my favorite sports team.
That is so good to see. We're trying to bring the balance
Right.
of Packers fans to Vikings fans just a little bit more level in the City of Carver. Well, Nick, it's great to have you back.
Better than the
Yeah.
Yes. It's great to have you back. Welcome back.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks. All right, up next is the JCP Improvement Project Construction Update. Chief Trimbo and Aaron Schmidt. How are we going to get fire trucks up there?
Gonna do a little off-roading. I think I get to go first. So I'm here to talk to you guys tonight about the JCP closure for approximately 8 weeks, why they do the roundabout and the remainder part of 6th Street. So our current plan is to use Chaska and Auto 8 for fire calls and PI, or personal injury accidents, for all calls, anything north of 6th Street. We'll still be responding as Carver Fire, but they will probably get there before us, as they won't have to work through the construction zone. We will be in constant communication with Eureka to find out what our access point will be to get to either Dahlgren or 6th Street and be able to work our way around through the neighborhoods and get up through there. On medical calls, we feel because Ridgeview will be responding most likely from Chaska that we don't have Chaska responding for those. But if our blockage is completely blocked off, we'll always have a chief or a commanding officer in the town that will immediately start Chaska if need be for any of those calls. So we're going to keep our team updated via Active 911. That seems to be the quickest way to get them, which is an app on all their phones. So we'll be able to send that out to all the firefighters if if we can't get up to those neighborhoods at all, and what direction we want them to go. What questions do you guys have?
I know you provided charts in the past of like how many calls per month. Do you guys see a spike in this upcoming 2 to 3 month period typically in calls?
No, it's pretty average.
Pretty average.
15 to 20 per month. So, but this year has kind of been a strange year. So, anything's open. I think we'll be at the end of July. We'll be at what we did in all of last year.
Oh my gosh.
So,
So 15 to 20 is more like 30 to 40.
probably not 40, but we
Okay.
might hit 25 to 30.
Wow.
But we think, we'll also be on scene a little bit longer as it takes Ridgeview to get longer to anything south of that intersection. So we'll be spending more time with our patients on medical calls and things like that. So, and Ridgeview has been updated through the weekly communication. So,
Okay. Nothing else from me.
any other questions?
No,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you. Glad we thought through
I'm going to head off to training, go
Okay.
play in the heat.
it. Okay.
Anybody wants to switch with me?
Thank you. It's a little warm. Thank you, Callie.
We have a group of guys on a scale actually doing live burns tonight. So that's going to be
Hot.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
All right. That was the exciting part, Aaron. What do you have?
Yeah, man. Can't beat that. So I got some more general updates on all the projects that are going on around town right now. So I'll start off with the JCP project, and then I'll give a little update on the water system expansion projects that we also have going in town right now. So a couple key things going on. What the big push is right now, everybody's gearing up towards the big closure, which is going to happen on June 14th. It was originally planned to happen on the 9th of June. With some of the weather we had a couple weeks ago, it really kind of slowed things down that week. So Eureka, the contractor, thought that instead of starting like on a Friday, you might as well just wait, give everybody another weekend to use the road, and then just hit it Monday morning, the 14th. So that's the plan for now, barring no surprises. So Monday morning, the 14th, before the AM rush hour, the road will be closed down. So by 6 o'clock is the plan. So everybody will have to use the detour that Monday morning. So some of the other things you'll see on the corridor, you see a lot of new pavement being showing up on the corridor. The east side from 4th to 6th Street is now paved, and the west side from Ironwood up to 212. So that'll carry traffic in stage 2. So they're going to be getting ready to stripe that, get ready to put traffic on that here on the 14th. As far as work goes this week, probably the most notable thing is Ironwood Drive. They're going to start construction on that. They're not going to do anything within the roadway until school's out, so they'll be doing some work behind the curb. But then when school's out, they'll be getting into the roadway itself. There'll be some traffic shifts to move cars around so they can build that road in segments. So you'll always be able to use that road. It'll just be, on a daily basis, you might be in a little bit different configuration. So as I mentioned, the closures on the 14th, that'll begin stage 2 for the project. Jonathan Carver Parkway will be closed from the south side of Ironwood intersection. So Ironwood will still be full access, east and west. You just won't be able to go south of Ironwood. And then 6th Street through 6th Street, that'll be completely closed to all traffic. Local business access will be maintained to Carver Square. That'll be via 4th Street. As if you come from the south going northbound on Jonathan Carver Parkway, there'll be a narrow two-lane access road. That'll be paved some of the time it'll be just gravel surfacing, depending on where they're at in stage 2. So nothing, very major as far as the facility goes there. It's purely meant to maintain business access to Carver Square. So there'll be signage on the south end at 4th Street saying, children of tomorrow, chiropractor, etc., straight. And it just goes right into their parking lot, and that's all it does. There's no through traffic that can go through there at all.
So to be clear, that's access from the south. The only access to Carver Square will be from that south.
Yeah, and if it's from the north, the only access is through the Oak Tree development. So those are the two options to get to those businesses.
So stage 2 traffic shift, because you mentioned we've got some parts paved, so we're going to shift traffic over to those newly paved so that we can rip up and redo the other side. That'll already be starting. Okay,
Yep, that'll be starting beginning next week.
got it.
Any other questions on Jonathan Carver Parkway?
The chief said 8 weeks of when Chaska's going to be covering for us. Do you anticipate the closure to only be 8 weeks?
No, so the road is going to be closed all the way up till September. There's a 8-week closure period where the entire 6th Street intersection is going to be completely closed for the roundabout construction. So there'll be a time when hopefully they'll be able to open that intersection up again, but still north of 6th to Ironwood will still be closed. So,
Okay, so 8 weeks impassable to fire trucks.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Got it. And then it will absolutely, positively be open by the time school starts.
that's how it's written in the contract. So
Okay.
let's all hope.
Okay. All right. Knocking on wood.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So just a few pictures I wanted to include. So obviously communications has been a huge piece of the project. So I'm sure everybody has seen this. This has been pushed out via all the communication avenues. So this gave a kind of a general timeline, some notes about where the closure is. The picture on the right-hand side is the detour routes. So the green detour is what we call the regional detour. So that's for all, commuter traffic, through traffic. They use County Road 50 to 43 and then down 212. And then the routes to downtown will still be available for people that are hoping to get to the downtown businesses and City Hall, whatever. So that'll be via County Road 40 or 61. So those are kind of the two different routes that we're showing.
So I'm not sure I've seen staged signage out for the detour, like south of Carver. But will there be something before 50? So if you're coming up on Jonathan Carver Parkway from Jordan, you
Yeah.
will see signage there that says, hey,
Yeah,
this is closed, turn left. Okay.
Yeah, this will be all, formal, MnDOT type
Yeah.
signage, like official detour.
Okay, good,
Yep.
good.
Okay, so just a few quick pictures. This is on the north end of the job. This was a couple weeks ago already, but this is when the curb and gutter was placed. This is looking towards the ramps there on 212. This is the south end of the job looking north when they were paving that portion of the project here. I think it was probably close to 2 weeks ago already, but just a couple of progress pictures of the project here. There were a couple questions that I believe came up regarding the profile of the roads, specifically on the north end of the project. The existing 2 lanes of roadway are much higher than the new lanes that are paved now. So I just wanted to clarify that the road is getting much wider, so we're adding, 2 more lanes of pavement here plus trails. So just the sheer width of that corridor, you kind of have to do like a best fit based on the right-of-way width you have available and being able to tie down within that right-of-way. So it may look a little awkward today that the existing pavement is like, 4 or 5 feet higher than the new pavement lanes that they just did. But at the end of the day, as you can see, this is a cross-section here that I just wanted to show for perspective. This is just north of Monroe Drive. At the end of the day, the road will be, essentially level. So northbound lanes and southbound lanes will be at very similar elevations. So it's just kind of a balancing act when you lay out the profiles for a divided highway. You have to kind of best fit it in there with what you have available to use for width. So just want to do a quick explanation on that. So
Thank you.
Yep.
And I have a question on that. Is some of that related to the grade on the hill from 6th Street? Like, is that gonna?
So that's a good question, Lori. That they are adjusting the profile coming down the hill to 6th Street. They made that a little bit flatter, so there's some cut that's going to happen in there. So they're going to actually be lowering the road, like at the top of the hill. And then they're going to flatten it out sooner for the roundabout. So there's like a little flat approach versus like going straight down and then right into a roundabout. So we looked at that a lot during our design review, and there was a lot of back and forth with trying to really make that as flat as possible while balancing, again, right away width. You have to be able to still slope up or down and tie in with the right of way you have available. So that was a really big design element for the county, is trying to make that slope as, flat as they can going down the hill.
Happy to see that as part of it.
Yeah. Yep.
Welcomed.
Any other questions on JCP?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I'll just go ahead and move on to 5.3, which is the water system expansion portion of the presentation. So a few key updates. Just a reminder, this is 3 projects we have going as part of this overall improvement for the city's water system. We have the treatment plant, obviously, is the big one, right? There's a lot of stuff going on there right now. The backwash tank that was being constructed over the winter, that's all complete now. So we're able to use that new tank. The old tank is now removed, so that's out of the way. The internal site piping work is already underway. That's going really well, and they're actually planning now to do the actual foundation work for the building expansion, which is going to be starting up here really soon. So a lot of stuff going on that small site right now. A lot of things happening. The well 5, that's the well that's just west of Meridian Fields. That drilling has also started, which is exciting. They have about 200 feet of casing that's been drilled to date. That well is anticipated to be about 450 feet deep. So they're doing pretty well on that. They're just keep chipping away. It's obviously a slow process. They started with a 24-inch diameter steel casing, so there's a lot of dirt that has to get moved to sink a casing 450 feet. So, but it's going well from what I can hear from Trout. They're doing a good job. Lastly, the raw water main project. That project was going really well. They hit it really hard this spring. The pipe work is all in the ground, so that's really good. It was a good day when all that got in. We've been testing all the pipe segments, so we have to pressure test all the pipe to make sure there's no issues with it. We did find one spot by the water treatment plant where there is a crack in the pipe. So this week, the contractor is actually going to be digging down in that area to fix that spot. You might have seen a communication push on that. So that's going to require, while they're doing that, to have a flagger on Mount Hope Road because of all the activity. It's pretty deep there, and it's pretty close to the road. So for everybody's safety, we have to close one lane down. So they'll be flagging it during that time. Other than that, west of Jonathan Carver Parkway, the site's pretty well restored at this point, which looks really good. And then east of Jonathan Carver, as they get all this testing stuff finished up, they'll be following up with the concrete work and then any final bituminous, trail work, that kind of stuff. So hopefully here in the next couple weeks, things are going to start looking a lot more restored than they are today for this project. But all things considered, I think the completion date was October 15th for this job, and they're doing a good job. So
Next year.
for the raw water main, for the pipe work alone. So Northdale's doing a pretty good job with the water main work itself. So just a few pictures. So this is on the left side is the new internal piping for the pipe gallery that's going to be under the gravity filters for the treatment plant. And then on the right, you can see where that sand area is. That's where the old tank was. So that's been removed and backfilled with sand, getting ready for the building expansion. So site is starting to change before our eyes. Here's the well 5 site. So Trout's out there, obviously drilling casing to get our well 5 operational. So a lot of steel pipe sitting there right now. This picture here is looking south on Mount Hope Road. This was taken probably 3 weeks ago already, but this is the last main piece of the 14-inch water main going south to the treatment plant. So they're pulling that pipe with a directional drill machine south towards the treatment plant in that picture. And lastly here is a picture. This is on the west side of the job where the 212 crossings were. This is looking south at the frontage road. right towards the well 5 site. So this is where the raw water main went, and the finished water main that we added as part of the project that'll hook into the Hammers development here someday at the preserve. So things are looking pretty good over there. And I believe that's it. Yep, so any questions on our water projects?
Is that fire hydrants a new addition? Is that part of the project?
Yep, so the blue fire hydrants, that's, if you ever see that in town, that's on the raw water mains, which is the water main or the water that's coming right out of the wells. So the finished water mains will have red hydrants, and the blue ones are the raw, or
Oh, I did
we'll
not
call it
know that.
untreated water. So the water that
That's a
still
fun
has to go to the
Fun fact
plant,
for
so.
tonight.
Okay.
Yep,
Aaron, thank you. I
Yep.
That's good.
just have a couple of quick questions. The broken pipe that you mentioned for the raw water main, right? Does that start to eat into our contingency fund, I assume, or something like that?
no, that would all be contractor repair, so.
Oh, okay.
At this point, we're assuming that it's nothing that, we did wrong or anything. It's just sometimes with those operations, things happen, they might have hit a rock or something or whatever. So we have to work that out yet, but at this point, I'm not anticipating that the city's gonna have to really contribute to that,
Perfect.
if at all, so.
Okay, that was the right answer. Let's see, other question about the wells. I remember when we were talking about this project, we were kind of talking about how we won't know the volume until we get literally 450 feet into the ground. Like timeline, when will we have some numbers on if this is giving us the volume that we're looking for?
I think at this point, from what I recall, they're going to be doing the test pumping, they call that, in probably July or August
Okay.
at this point. So it's going to be a couple months yet before we really know what the production is out of this well and where the next well is going to go from there. So to kind of expand on that a little bit, the DNR is part of that process, and they're involved with the test pumping, and then we have obviously spots that are desirable for well 6, but we can't really make a decision on that until the DNR says, okay, yes, you can do this. So, yep.
All right, those are my questions. Ladies, any other questions?
No questions? Nope.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Yep.
And really appreciate those pictures. Those help, especially the well or the water plant's expansion. I don't
Yeah.
see into that project as much, so thank you.
Yep.
All right, we have no public hearings this evening. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
A motion by Councilmember McKnight,
I'll second.
a second by Councilmember Sayer. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. Let's see, moving on to business items, the 2020 financial statements. Mr. Nielsen.
My screen has froze. Not amongst yourselves.
All right. All right, Justin, if you can hear us, we're having a few technical difficulties here in Carver. So we're gonna just move to the next item,
We move to the 5 for the third business item.
something that's not, the one that's not yours.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So let's move on to 8.3, hopscotch around a little bit to the local road improvement program. Resolution 122-21. Mr. Schmidt, I understand
All
you're
right.
amazingly
Yeah,
awesome
it
to
isn't.
share with us.
It is not very often that somebody gets to come to council and present such amazing news as this, but we got the LRIP money for 6th Street, so that's a very big day. So we got the letter, I believe it was on June 1st, from MnDOT saying that the project has been awarded. They have funds set aside for up to $1.25 million for the project, and we're well underway. So what we have before us tonight, we have a resolution to accept the LRIP grant award from MnDOT. Very exciting. So just thinking about what's to come on the project. In talking with Dan, obviously this summer we need to finalize the final scope of the project, the final layout. So we'll be working through that this summer, sharing that with the council. We need to set up a few administrative items for the project. Since we're a small city, Carver County, they're our project sponsor, so we'll be working with them to set up a few of those administrative items. So there'll be some, pass through things with them. By fall of 21, we'll be looking into full-blown project design, plans and specifications, following up by all the state aid approvals for the project. So they review all the things for, state aid standards, state aid funding review, all that stuff. So that'll be, the final dollar amount, it's not, guaranteed 1.25 million. I think we're going to be able to use it all, but they have some things that are eligible, some things that are not eligible. What we're doing on this road is pretty, core funding eligible stuff, reconstructing the street, all the storm sewer work, all that stuff is all eligible. Some of the things that aren't is, if you get into some of the landscaping elements, that kind of stuff. But we'll have to look at that more, but that's just one of the steps in, the final approval process. This winter, we'll be coming back to council, obviously, to approve plans and specs. Bid the project nice and early, get that out, get it bid and awarded, and look to hit construction right away next spring is the goal. So that would be the ideal schedule from our perspective.
All right. That is awesome. So questions?
Yeah.
You said that we have, we won the full amount, right?
Yep.
So we could get up to $1.25 million,
Mm-hmm.
but it has to fit within the parameters and they have to approve and sign off, correct?
Yep, correct.
Okay. And then you mentioned that the county is our project sponsor. Does that mean they're the fiduciary agent? Is the money going to run through them for this?
Yep, the project will run through them because they have state aid,
Okay.
Which we do not right now. Obviously, we don't have like a state aid account or anything.
Okay.
And there's some other things that we have to set. We'll set up a meeting with the county and talk through how we're going to deal with some of the other things. But that's the primary reason is we just have no mechanism to actually receive, state aid funding at this point. So.
Great. And this was a ridiculously competitive process, right? They had more, the reason why the announcement was delayed is because they had more applicants than they had anticipated.
Yep. So it took about a month longer than they wanted, but that's okay.
Right?
That's just okay.
Well, thank you. Very well done. And also, also worth noting is I think we had a little bit of a short runway that we asked some of our other elected officials to write letters of support for this project. So we got letters of support from Senator Coleman and Representative Nash and Commissioner Fahey. I think all wrote letters, or two of the three of those folks. And so appreciate their help and support on this project as well. Any other questions?
Do you have any idea, I know this is super early, we haven't done the design, but can you guess on how long it will take to do this construction project? Is this like a 6-month project? Is it a year project?
It's definitely not going to be the whole construction season.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it'll be a partial season.
Okay,
So
good.
Yep.
I was hoping you'd say.
Yep.
Councilmember McKnight had the same question I did, so thanks for
Partial season can mean
partial.
up to 99% though, right?
Sure.
Just one more question that I thought of. We will not be bonding for this project, most likely, right? Because that's included in what we bonded for in the JCP project. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome.
So great.
All right. Well, I will make a motion to adopt Resolution 122-21, accepting the 2020 Local Road Improvement Project or Program Grant Award from MnDOT for the 6th Street West Reconstruction Project.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mayor Johnson and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Motion passes. Thank you for everything. All right. You in a good place, Brent? Okay. All right. Back to the 2020 audited financial statements. Mr. Nelson, sorry about the bait and switch there a little bit, but we had some technical issues back here. Go ahead.
That's okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for having me tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to present my findings for the audit. So Brent, will you be pulling it up or will it be up on the screen?
I can pull it up, but we're not gonna be able to see you then, which might be fine. No, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. It probably would be more valuable for everybody to see the screen, to see the presentation than me anyways, but, well, again, I appreciate you having me. I guess I always like to just start my presentation by saying a quick thank you to the council for having us as your auditors. We've been partners for a number of years and we hope to continue that. Things go really well. And as part of that process, we also work obviously closely with staff, Kathy and Brent. So we appreciate all their help in putting everything together for us, kind of outside their normal duties on a day-to-day basis. So they're very helpful and we really appreciate everything they do for us. So thank you to them. So we're ready to, it looks like I can barely see the corner of it. I'll try and follow along as best I can. I'll just go over the quick introduction of my presentation. We are just going to go over the audit opinion and the responsibility as an audit firm and why we are hired. I'll then go into the general fund results, followed by the other governmental funds, the enterprise funds, and finish with some key performance indicators, which would be comparing the city of Carver to cities under 10,000 in population and those in the Carver County. There we go. You can flip to the next one when you're ready. So for 2020, we did issue a clean, unmodified audit opinion for the city. So, that is the highest opinion that the city can get, and that is this opinion the city's looking for. So, we as part of arriving at that opinion, we tested a number of different transactions around paying of bills, paying of employees, utility billing transactions, taxes, grants, and things that council's getting to make decisions. So as part of that, we did issue one audit finding that I'll go over on the next slide. Again, a common finding and one from a carryover from last year. The second thing we are required to do as part of our audit is test Minnesota legal compliance and state statutes. The Office of the State Auditor does put guides on their website that we are required to test as part of our audit. And just a couple examples of some of those things that we specifically test would be looking at whether or not the city is paying their bills timely. And the second one would be looking at contracts and bids that the city enters into during the year. So if we do flip slide forward, which you're on now, it's just going over the one finding that we had for 2020. So the finding is preparation of financial statements. And again, this one has been a carryover from the past. So, as part of the audit process and part of the reporting process, we were requested as auditors to draft the financial statements, which again isn't uncommon for cities under 10,000, and frankly for most of our cities that we do audit work for. So, the finding does exist. Just noting that we are a part of the internal control process at the city. We understand that there are some compensating controls with staff review the financial statements that we do provide. However, it is still just a deficiency in internal controls. Just noting that again, the audit firm is part of that process. And again, I think it's just discussing with staff. This is something that again is common and something that a lot of cities have, and one of the most common audit findings that we have. So getting into the general fund results a little bit, we do show a chart here. It does have a lot of information on it, but it really does aim to show kind of a trend over the last 5 years related to the general fund in comparison to the budget. So we do offset 1 year and compare to the future year's budget to show what a good reserve level would be. So the city does have, I will just point out too, that the city does have a policy, where it is transferring any remaining funds over 50% of their general fund policy to their special capital projects fund. So if we do look at the chart, it's been very consistent over the past 5 years, where the city has a policy of a minimum of 40% and transferring anything over that 50% to capital. And I think overall, a really good sign that the city is saving for the future, moving money to that special capital project fund and just having a really good, consistent fund balance over the life of the last 5 years in comparison. So just focusing maybe more on 1 year and looking at the general fund budget to actual in 2020. So the city did budget in 2020 for a net change in fund balance of 0 or a balanced budget. So when we look at the actual results, the city did actually increase its fund balance about $230,000, which we did go over on that last slide. So how we got there is starting with revenues. Revenues were over the actual or the budgeted amount by about $650,000 there. So the two main reasons for the revenue variance or the positive budget variance would be, permit revenue and the CARES funding that was received that was included in the city's general fund. So, along with that, so there were some overages and expenditures to pay or to spend some of those CARES dollars. So the expenditures were over by about $100,000 there. And again, we see the transfer out to capital projects, about $300,000 there. So overall, a really good year for the general fund. So the next slide just goes over just a quick comparison. Again, this one is a 3-year comparison of just a breakdown of where the revenues and the expenditures are broken down by type in the general fund. So the top chart, looking at revenues, we see obviously the biggest portion of things in the general fund would be the taxes. We also break out license permits, intergovernmental, and other. So I think the one thing always to point out is that taxes is the main source of revenue in the general fund, and any change one way or the other would have a significant impact on the general fund. The second one is the expenditures, and just looking at that, I think the one thing that sticks out a little bit is that big increase in the public safety. And I think as we've already discussed, some of those CARES expenditures as well as building inspection are included in that public safety. So that public safety line would include police, fire, building inspections, and the pandemic response or the CARES funding. So slide 8 just looks at the special revenue funds within the city. So I won't spend a ton of time here, just noting that there are 4 of them. Other than the Park and Ride Transit Fund, all the other ones have a committed balance for future years. Future use for the name of the fund really there, and just in preparation, noting that the Park and Ride Transit, I think, and the council is probably aware, has a plan for kind of eliminating that deficit, kind of in the not too distant future. So the next one would be the city's capital project funds. So there are a number of these. These are some of the projects that we were just listening to. Probably from the past, really. But I think the 2 main things to point out here are that, and just looking at the detailed funds, I think one thing that's positive is the city, the TIF Mills 1-8 was closed in 2020. So I think that's a good thing there. That project was probably a big undertaking and now has completed, and that fund will be closed going forward. And the second one there is just kind of the city's special capital project fund increasing about $500,000. So having about an $850,000 kind of assigned fund balance for the future use on any specific capital projects. And a big reason for that increase, again, as we already mentioned, was some of that transfer, as well as the American Tower easement sale proceeds kind of went to that special capital project fund as well. So I think the other thing just to note that the big restricted balance relates to kind of the park development fee, kind of on the way top there, about $2.4 million. All right, the last type of funds before we get into the enterprise would be the city's debt service fund. So we do just show a chart here to show kind of the next 10 years of principal and interest payments, as well as the future interest payments on those debts. And just noting when those maturity dates are, just kind of as an informational chart for the council. All right, so the next few go into the city's enterprise fund. So we're going to see 2 charts for each enterprise fund. The first is the operational chart. So the first, again, will be the water fund. So again, this one does show, I guess I'll just point out really quick that a good operating enterprise fund would show the operating receipts and connection fees kind of in excess of those operating costs and debt payments. So I think if you look at the water fund over the past 4 years, I think there's been some conceded efforts there, and obviously some bigger connection fees received in the last 2 years. They've kind of had a really positive impact on the city's water fund. So if we flip to the next slide and just look at the overall water cash fund balance, I think you can see just looking at how those connections and just overall increase in operations as well has incorporated into the city's overall cash balance. So I think it's important to point out also that there are some big projects into the future, and these balances are kind of in line with the city's long-term capital plan. So next would be the sewer fund. This one's a little bit on the similar side. Where kind of those purple and blue lines are kind of fighting to catch up to that green and the gray bar. I think the sewer fund is a little different with being connected to my council, but I think the positive thing to note here is that in 2020, that blue and purple bar did exceed the green and the gray bar. So I think that's a really positive thing and moving in the right direction in the city's sewer fund. So we flip to the next slide, just looking at the overall cash balance. I think really pretty consistent over the past 4 years. A little bit of a decrease there in 2019, but overall pretty consistent. One thing I failed to mention with the water is that we do present that minimum target balance, which would be the following year's debt service plus 6 months of operating costs. And again, we just, as an industry standard, that's a good low line minimum for an enterprise fund to have in reserve. All right, so the last fund, or the last enterprise fund, would be the city's stormwater fund. This one's kind of been all over the board a little bit in the last few years, but I think it's really tied to those stormwater access charges. And I think overall it's been pretty positive when you include those. And just in preparation in our meeting with the city staff, it was noted that there were some stormwater fees that were kind of expected in 2020 that were just a little bit delayed into early 2021. So I think that's a little bit of the reason for the kind of that lower bar in the 2020 year for the stormwater access charges. So again, the same chart for the stormwater, looking at the cash balance. I think overall with some of the capital needs that has decreased in 2020, but overall, again, I think it's well within line with that minimum target and kind of in line with the city's capital plan. So to tie it all together, we do just show a chart of the city's overall cash and investments by type. So we do separate them outside of all the different funds that I just mentioned. So I think, again, this chart does show that I think overall things are, with all the activity that does take place, things are pretty consistent year over year. A slight increase in cash over the last 3 years. And I think just a good overall balance between the different types of funds, future capital, general fund, enterprise, et cetera. I think there's just a good balance there. I think that shows a good, healthy city. So the last few are just, again, as I mentioned, key performance metrics, just comparing the city of Carver to others under 10,000 population and others in Carver County. So the first one we show is the city's tax rate, which really compares favorably to those in the comparison peer group. So the city of Carver has had a pretty consistent tax rate of about, at the end of 2020 was 49.5%. So I think that's a really good sign, especially in comparison with some of those others in the peer group. So, a totally different statistic, but one that is just, again, a different statistic and calculated differently, but taxes per capita. So I think this one does show, as you look out to 2020, since we only have relevant data from the prior year for 2019, does show the city of Carver increasing just slightly over the peer groups. But again, I think in looking at the peer groups in the future, I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. And again, the city is on a growth pattern, and I think it's well in line with its plans. I guess on a similar note, just looking at the long-term debt per capita, this one again would be on the higher side when you're looking at cities within the peer group and in the county. But I think again the main message here would be to grow. I think there's some needs and some capital things that need to take place, and debt needs to be taken out to get there. So I think overall this is just, again, a chart to show those statistics, and again, one that I think the city's has a plan for and is planning for, and I think is well in line with that plan. All right, so two more, just looking at one other just a statistic and looking at the city's debt service expenditures as a percent of their current expenditures. So just kind of a different metric to look at, as a percentage of our just overall expenditures when we remove capital, how much are we spending on debt? So I think as you look at the peer groups, the cities within Carver County a little bit on the higher side over the past couple of years, and looking at the cities in the fourth class on the kind of right in line with that 20%. And again, I think this chart just shows kind of something similar to what we looked at the last slide, just a little bit on the higher side, just with some of the growth that is happening within the city. Last slide I have to go over is just looking at a similar, or looking at a chart to compare current expenditures to the overall residents or per capita basis. So I think this is the one where City of Carver does compare really favorably to those others within the county and under 10,000 in population. So I think, this just really points out the good operations and, good spending within the city and responsible spending. So I think overall, good statistic there.
Well, excuse me, Justin, I have a question on that class 4 cities. Do you want me to wait till the end?
I am actually, I was just gonna say, I'm ready to take any questions right now.
Okay, yeah. Just saw the next slide. Okay, are you sure?
Yeah, no, I am. Yeah, go right
All
ahead.
right, the class 4 cities, is it just all of them in Minnesota that are plotted on the graph, or is it just the ones in Carver County? Like, what's the definition on this graph? What's the definition?
Which graph are we talking about?
Like on slide 19, it first came up.
19.
Like I understand within Minnesota, there's the class 1 through 4 cities, but
Yep.
are you just saying class 4 cities inside Carver County or class 4 cities inside the entire state?
I believe that cities in Carver County would include any city within Carver County. The class 4 is anything under 10,000 in population.
Right, I get that. But so the class 4 in Carver County, are they the same thing if that's it? Or is class 4 mean within the whole state of Minnesota?
I'm not
I think
sure.
I'm saying the whole state.
All right.
Yeah, class 4 is all under 10,000 population
Yeah.
within Minnesota,
Okay.
but then it's also comparing all the cities in Carver County.
Okay. Is Chanhassen over 10,000?
Yeah,
Yes.
like 25 or.
Okay.
Yes.
But they would be included in the Carver County
They would be in
ratios.
the Carver
or
Okay,
in
all
the
right, so
Carver
just
County
all the
data.
separate categories, not one with inside the other. Okay,
Correct.
all right.
Yep, they're two
Okay,
separate
thank you.
ratios. Yep. Ken, does anybody have any other questions on any of the?
No, Justin did an
Excuse me.
amazing job of answering every single one of my questions that I had noted down in his commentary, so he nailed it.
Justin, thank you. You did do a really good job of explaining everything and anticipating my questions too. My only question, and I think we've asked this in previous years, that pesky internal control finding. That has been something that has been a ding on our audits every year that I've been on council, and I get the reason behind that. We are looking at potentially within a handful of years, probably sooner, hiring a finance director. Having a finance director and an accountant, is that enough redundancy? Are those enough kind of bodies doing that kind of work to avoid that kind of finding in the future?
I guess the best answer to your question is it's possible. I think we would have to analyze it. I think part of the analytical would be some analysis on the capabilities of the people hired. But I think generally speaking, the answer would lean towards yes. But I do think it would require some additional analysis. I don't think just because you hire a finance director that it would eliminate the finding.
Okay.
To be as clear as I can, I suppose.
Okay. Thank you.
And Justin, could you clarify, we talked at our kind of preliminary presentation that I think the statistic was just 2 of the cities that you do prepare audits for avoid that finding. Is that correct? Whether finance director or not?
There are some cities with people that have worked in the position that I currently work in that we don't have this finding for, or cities that do draft their own financial statements. I would say the finding exists in 40 to 50%. So I think potentially Steve might have mentioned that, and I don't want to give you the wrong statistics because I don't think that that's true. So I think it's closer to about half of our cities that we audit overall. I'd say on under 10,000 population, it's getting a little higher as well. But I think it's a really common finding. It does sometimes depend on, again, the person that is the finance director at some level for kind of some of that analysis. and some of the things too that we talk about with the finding relates to, reliance on us as part of that internal control process to know things like GASB standards, and other things that go into the 150-page report that we put together. So it's not necessarily it really is, the finding really does relate to the financial statements as a whole, not necessarily the day-to-day operations. It's part of our audit process and just preparing that overall document. And again, making sure that all those GASB standards and everything that goes into those things and those 150 pages is accurate according to the whole big picture of what those standards say. If that helps.
I would just kind of in the vein of under promise, over deliver. I would ask the council not to expect that finding go away, finance director or not, that until we reach a certain level of redundancy, it's just gonna be there. But through every rating call that I've ever done, for a bonding agency when the city does a project, that issue never comes up. And so, I think it maybe hurts our sensibilities related to we wish we had a perfect clean audit. But other than that, there's no downside to it as far as how it impacts our overall financial situation.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? All right, before we approve this, I do want to recognize Kathy and the work that she does for this. I know that in every year that is not COVID, we see Kathy at one meeting, and it is this meeting, so that she is here to hear about the audit and hear the report. And I know that there would not be an audit without your help, so thank you very much. I know that they're long, hard days, and we appreciate all your hard work, so thank you. And it's good to see you at a council meeting every once in a while. So, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the audit as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2020 audit as presented.
We have a motion by Councilmember Sayer
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember McKnight. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right. Motion carries. Moving on to 8.2, the City Attorney Services, request for qualifications review. Mr. Merrick.
Just give me 1 second, Mayor and Council. All right. So the City of Carver operates as a statutory B municipality, otherwise known as a council manager form of government. As a statutory B city, the city council is responsible for making 2 appointments, one being the city manager and the other being the city attorney. The city manager in turn makes all other personnel appointments under the city's form of government. The city's longtime city attorney, Larry Harris, recently announced his retirement effective June 30th. At the May 17th work session, the city council requested the city manager prepare requests for qualifications to seek proposals for city attorney services. So in your packet, you can see the anticipated process for selection. So pending council approval tonight, we'd send out the RFQ tomorrow, June 8th. Proposals would be due on July 12th. With first round of interviews completed by a city manager and staff, our hope would be to select 2 finalist firms or individuals to present to you, and then do second round interviews by August 16th, and put you in a position, if everything on the schedule went perfectly, to appoint a city attorney on September 7th. So in your packet is a complete RFQ. Happy to answer any questions on specific items laid out in the proposal process.
Questions?
I guess the only question I have, I guess what I want to understand from a budgeting perspective, it didn't sound like in the RFQ that we put a specific budget in there, but we asked for, those bidding on it to provide. Are we setting any guidelines? Do we have a budget for this?
Can Councilmember McKnight, can you say more about when you say budget, like budget for what expenditures?
For a city attorney, right? Because we're going to, those who are bidding on this RFQ, right, are gonna provide a fee schedule or whatever,
Correct.
right? Do we have a budget for what we expect that to look like?
No,
Okay,
it'll be based on, I would say, the totality of the entire proposal.
oh, totally,
Yep.
okay. I was
So-
just wondering if we had a specific target in mind. Is it, or is it something that we need to consider for 2022 budgeting?
No, I mean, the way that we budget our legal services is based on prior years, what we expect for
Okay,
current year, so it'll be, the hourly rate is more important than the total.
okay,
And so I'm expecting that I'm expecting firms to submit an employee of their firm
yep,
as a city attorney, and I'd anticipate that rate will be consistent with that individual attorney's level of experience.
of course.
And so when we look at it in totality, we'll have to make a determination on, is this fit within our
Historical spend.
historical
Okay.
hourly rate for a city attorney?
That was really what I wanted to try to understand, is how we would look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, I think we'd start at a baseline of what we're spending now,
Of course.
or per hour, understanding that, within a typical city attorney's office, you'll have your primary contact, and then there'll be paralegals or maybe somebody else in the firm that helps out that might be at different rates, so we'll have to do an assessment and
Okay,
look at that.
okay. That's my only question.
Lori, anything from you?
I had a question, but it was answered in the city council memo, so I appreciate that the memo was very detailed. I was more just curious if Mr. Harris was part of putting together but it was answered that he was not.
Correct.
Putting together the RFP.
So we're-
RFQ.
Yep, we're expecting Melkert to propose, so I didn't think it was appropriate for them to prepare the proposal language.
Yeah, yep, no, I think that was well handled, and I
Yeah.
appreciated that was right there
Yeah.
in the memo. So.
Yep.
I think this looks good, Brent. I like the timeline. And I think it's so important that the first round of interviews takes place by the city staff and city manager, because you guys are the day-to-day. We could pick somebody and think that we're experts in what we want in an attorney and have interactions with that person twice or maybe 3 times a month, So I appreciate that. The only comment that I had, and this is like a super nitpicky thing, but under the review qualification based selection, I just thought, thinking out loud, I wonder with as you see fit with this, but there's a sentence in there that says respondents are strongly encouraged to have the individual who would act as the city attorney be responsible for providing the majority of day-to-day services and staff, be the person who primarily answers the interview questions throughout the process, as opposed to a spokesperson or senior member of the firm. My suggestion, my thought when reading that, is I wonder if we don't want to firm up that language instead of saying strongly encouraged, like say this person must be versus anyone else. But
I
just my thought.
defer to the council. In my mind, and I appreciate that sentiment, in my mind, that would be if they chose not to do it, it would be a telling factor in how we grade their performance during the process.
Do you think we'd be able to tell?
Yeah, I mean, if attorney or a firm, the Jones Law Firm says that Aaron Schmidt's going to be our primary attorney, but Vicky, as the senior member of their firm, answers all the questions on his behalf, then we were like, well, obviously we should be interviewing Vicky as the city attorney and not Aaron. So,
Okay. I just
but
envision that it would be written in a way to make it sound, Vicky's writing would sound like it's coming from Aaron's voice.
in my mind, I don't care who prepares the proposal. I'm expecting that the entire firm is going to be kind of all hands on deck. For me, it's when we get into the interview room, both with staff and the council, that person responds.
Yes.
And I think based on the physicality of that, we'll be able to see
Got it,
and
okay.
hear.
That makes sense. I was thinking more of their submission. But
Oh.
that's
That's not-
You have two different things, so you're right.
Yeah.
It would be, if Vicky shows up in Aaron's place, that would be
Right.
very obvious.
And we've
so.
provided clear coaching.
Vicky, you're
here
not
on-
submitting for this, are you? Just,
Well, think about it, there's still time according to the timeline. What are you talking? Maybe not to pass the bar exam, but I don't know how those things work.
but that's a good comment because it fleshed out kind of how the
Yes.
process would work.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
Thank
makes
you
sense to
for-
me.
Thank you for letting me talk that through. All right, if there are no further questions, we can approve the RFQ.
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the request for qualifications for city attorney services and direct the city manager to solicit proposals.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Councilmember McKnight and a second by Councilmember Sayer. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, we already did 8.3. Moving on to communications, item 9.1, the 212 overpass railing. Mr. Schmidt.
All right, another exciting topic tonight here.
See it up there.
Yep.
That.
So the 212 railing, I guess to really simplify this as much as I can, talking to Dan about this a little bit more and such, I think what you really need to do is think about this in terms of, are you willing to spend the money and go down a road of probably some difficulties with MnDOT in tackling this. We think all in, this is probably going to cost north of $100,000 to do this. And it's not a sheer guarantee that it's going to turn out the way we want. You know, this is going to have to go through MnDOT structural review. There's going to be lots of strings attached to it that we'll have to try to accommodate. So,
It's like the auto version of that Fox 9 meteorologist.
One second.
okay, we good?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, so not trying to deter you one way or the other. I just want to lay it out as plainly as I can. Keeping that in mind, just looking for direction from the council. If it's something that you want to do, that's great. We'll definitely look into it a lot more, but just understand the sheer, quantity of what we're dealing with here. And I think you just have to decide if you want to pursue it more or not. So, any questions?
All right, questions, thoughts? Lori?
I'm the one who had brought this up at a work session. Wow, I didn't. It's good to know.
Yeah.
Just kind of even a ballpark number. I don't have the appetite for that large of an amount when it's just more, what I kind of think of as our branding, just being consistent, which has nothing to do with the project, but as long as that there was a possible opportunity, I'm all right with having just gone this far. But I want to hear others' thoughts too. I'm not sure if this is something then we table and get feedback from the council members not present. But
Nope, you miss a meeting.
okay.
Joy?
Yeah, I concur. It seems kind of expensive again, and it's part of branding. It's always something we could do in the futer, right? It's
Yeah.
not like we have to think about
Good
doing
point.
it now, right?
Thank you.
If some windfall falls on us, I don't know. But anyway, so I think it's good to kind of put a pin in that and save it for someday later. But good to know. For sure.
Yeah, and I agree. I think $100,000, I can't even say it. It's so far out of my comfort level that
Yeah.
I can't even say it. So
Yeah.
That said, when we talked about this the first time, I do agree with you that I think it's a missed opportunity not to have the branding as it is the
Yeah.
westbound traffic. I think it's going to look backwards that it's coming from the eastbound folks who know that Carver's there. But I understand that this is the hand we've been dealt, and it is what it is. I guess my ask of you, Erin, you guys are always so good at creative solutions. Is there something that would potentially be a lower ticket item? You know, is there anything that can be embedded into the bridge structure itself? You know, you see in the cities, and even like the light rail project of the decorative bridge beams, and you know, something that's kind of an add-on. I get that we're not pouring a new bridge, but something that looks and matches, that could potentially be approved by MnDOT, be a lower ticket item, and be on the east side of that bridge, so that you get the folks recognizing that, yeah, you're in Carver. Because at this point, that's the only overpass, that's our only opportunity, you know, other than, you know, historic district sign. Even the population sign is when it's too late to get off and come and explore our town. So I think just if that could be on your radar, if there's any other kind of creative lower price solution. I'm especially not in the mood to spend $100,000 on this, like, period, full stop. But also because we know that the contingency is going towards that 6th Street project. So I want to eat that up as well. So I think we have a fairly unanimous ruling. So even though I said that in jest, you know, we have a majority, and so it doesn't matter the thoughts. So, but yeah, if you see anything or hear of anything that is less expensive, something around the nice $10,000 mark, maybe, you know, it would be really great to have that opportunity for the westbound traffic in my mind. So
Can definitely look at that. We have a lot of people that work on this kind of stuff, so I'll ask around a little bit and see if there's anything else that might fit. So
awesome, thank you.
Okay, yep.
All right, 9.2 Ironwood Park project preview. Ms. Smith, how are you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. So tonight I am just giving you a little bit of a teaser of something to come at the June 21st meeting. So thinking about Ironwood Park, which the council approved preliminary plat for on May 3rd, we will be expanding Ironwood Park by about 4 acres. So we are thinking it's a good time to invest in that park with the amount of new residents that are coming in, potentially partner with the school district on a proposed expansion that they are working on, and move some of the priorities in our Parks Master Plan forward. So at the June 21st meeting, we're going to invite the Parks Commission to join the City Council in chambers if they're comfortable, or via Zoom is an option, to begin discussing ideas for Ironwood Park. So I'm going to ask that the council stays pretty high level and lets the Parks Commission do what they do as a group, and come back to you with some recommendations for the expansion of Ironwood Park, again, in relation to Timber Creek. So roughly about 4 acres being added to that park. So nothing concrete right now, but wanted to give a little commercial that we'll start work on it together as a group on the 21st. And then I suspect the Parks Commission will work on it over the summer into the fall, potentially with a 2022 project.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Erin?
So Ironwood is a city park, correct?
It is, yes.
And what is our arrangement with the school?
They have some priority field use during the
Priority
day.
field use, okay. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. All right, cool, look forward to it.
Questions? Okay, all right. No questions from me, Erin, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, 9.3, city manager's update. Mr. Merrick.
All right. Fingers crossed, this thing pops back up. There we go. American Rescue Plan. So the city is anticipating to receive just a shade under $530,000 under the American Rescue Plan funding model. They're still kind of tweaking it, but based on information we received from Metro Cities on Friday, that's the amount listed. Interesting sidebar to that is the 2019 census population they have for Carver in that model is 5,046. So, which I have later on in an update here to kind of talk about that. It's not as cool as the blue fire hydrant or the water hydrant. It's a fun
Sorry.
fact. It's a
Aaron wins
fun
the fun
fact.
fact. I mean, Aaron's still in the lead for the fun fact.
Still in the lead, thank you.
Yep.
So funding is anticipated to be received in 2 installments, the first being this June, and, you know, with the caveat that, you know, it's the federal government, so it could slide. But the interesting piece is the second half would come in June of 22. Right now, the language is telling us that we'd have until December of 26, which is, I think, a breath of fresh air considering kind of the fast pace process that we had with the last round of CARES funding. But we are continuing to almost on a daily basis get additional guidance from the U.S. Department of Treasury, State of Minnesota, and then the League of Minnesota Cities and Metro Cities have been excellent partners in trying to shuttle that information to us. There is, you know, and I know a lot of folks might refer to this as kind of the second round of CARES funding, but there are, I think, some considerable differences, and a lot of the uses, in my opinion, based on what I've read, are harder to meet as it relates to, like, so building and facilities. You can only do a building or facility if, for example, you're going to use it to do provide like a vaccination program or administer vaccines. So I know at one point we talked about, you know, could we do the fire department or public services building? I don't see a clear path to that. And when you start talking about federal funding, you know, risk tolerances for kind of being on the bad side of decision-making process there, sometimes significant or usually significant. Other eligible funding, loans and grants to small businesses and nonprofits, which the city has a history of doing. Loss of revenue incurred by local governments in responding to the public health emergency. You know, for example, you know, the city of Chaska will probably have some revenue loss to their recreation center or their community center that would likely be eligible. Where we think kind of our target is, and frankly is probably the safest avenue, is water, sanitary, sewer, and stormwater projects. So, and these are just a couple. So treatment, distribution, transmission, storage, new systems for development are all eligible projects. So getting that information, I spoke to Chad, Dan Lannis, and Aaron about can we develop a list of projects, you know, whether they're in our capital plan, existing capital plan, or projects that are maybe a little bit further out that we can maybe generate some momentum, which in the end would help kind of our financial situation when you think about the things that Justin talked about with debt, et cetera. Maybe things that could spur on development in areas where we don't have development. And so the three of those folks are going to be looking at that and developing something that once this thing becomes a little bit more formalized, we can take to you and get some feedback on decision making. But then again, areas that are ineligible, so the buildings and facilities, road projects. So when you hear infrastructure, I think we're all programmed to think, well, roads should be included in that. Well, that's, you know, not the case. So there are some broadband. You can work on broadband. So one of the things that you'll likely see is something Chad's been working on is bringing fiber to each of our infrastructure locations. So whether it's a lift station, a well house, water treatment plant, et cetera, to make sure all those systems are connected with the most reliable source of internet connections. And then the servicing of debt. So, you know, we just issued all this debt for the water treatment plant, wells, et cetera. We can't use this funding to pay that debt service. So there are, you know, pages and pages of information related to this, so we're going through it. So, but this is intended to be a high-level overview to get a conversation started or answer any questions or look at specific areas that you'd like to have more information on. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Questions?
I have a question. Dog parks, is that showing up at all as like totally ineligible or a possibility? Just
To
use any of these funds?
that would be ineligible. I would say that we have you know, we have money in our park dedication fund to handle that, but, park projects are not an eligible expense.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be interested to understand a little bit more about the loans and grants to small businesses and nonprofits, and if the requirements would be different than previous CARES Act funding. Because I know a lot of those were about, lost revenue and things like that, and to help businesses make payroll and pay their bills. But it would be interesting if there's an opportunity for the city to help spur economic development or something like that as well. I'd be interested to learn more,
Okay.
for sure.
That's a really good point. My only question is, because I'm looking at all of the infrastructure projects that we're doing right now, what is the start date of when this money could have been spent? For example, can we use it on some of the stormwater stuff that we're doing on the Jonathan Carver Parkway project?
We can't go retroactive. It has to be going forward.
What is the date, like June 1st?
Like, once we get the money,
Oh. Okay, bummer. Wow, I didn't think that anything could be harder to spend than the first round.
well, we have I think we have more than enough, probably
Okay.
10 times if you really start, if you took Aaron, Schmidt, and Chad out for an adult beverage after, they could probably talk your ear off about water and sewer projects that you could do for the next 10 years.
That sounds
That'd be a lot of fun too.
fun.
Yes.
Lots of fun facts during that.
Right.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Heads up. Is that it? Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if you had a laundry list. Okay. Council updates. Sorry, do you want to go first?
Well, I have a city manager's report when you're ready. That was it for the American Recovery Act.
Okay.
Why don't you go? Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to bring back up our friends on Zoom. Hi, friends. So, as you know, at your June 21st meeting, that will be Larry's last meeting, and so I'll be asking the council on the consent agenda to appoint Clarissa Volpe as the interim city attorney. And so I think just because Clarissa is here, and so who the person is that you're appointing, and Larry, set her up on a Packers question, which I thought was inappropriate, so we thought I'd give Clarissa another shot to introduce herself to the city council.
I think I asked the Packers question, didn't I?
It's always fun to blame the city
Throw
attorney when
Larry
things
under
go
the
wrong.
bus.
So Clarissa, if you want
The
to,
mayor asked it, therefore making it an appropriate.
Good answer.
Off the top of my head. I am a native Minnesotan, very proud to say. I was educated at college and law school outside the state. My parents were terribly worried that I would never come home, but I always knew I'd come back. I'm a proud graduate of Rosemont High School, and I've really enjoyed working both for state government and for corporations and in law firms, doing predominantly real estate and municipal. So I like that I've been able to have a real blended background and look at different arenas to try to understand cities as corporations. They're a special kind of corporation with special rules, but a lot of the in-house experience I have has been very helpful in thinking about how public corporations, literally municipal corporations, act. So I joined Melchert Firm on February 15th and furiously take notes every time I'm in the room with Larry Harris. I've learned a tremendous amount from him. And I'm very much looking forward to being interim city attorney for you all. Really interesting projects, and seems a very interesting point in your city's history that you're poised to be something very different than you've been a year or two ago. So it's a particularly exciting time to be helping out with your legal questions.
So welcome. You are right. We are at a really good point. Not a lot of legal issues in a bad way per se, but a lot of stuff that needs lawyering. So a lot going on.
Yes, and nothing boring, nothing run-of-the-mill.
Right.
Quirky in a good way.
Yes.
So it's been very enjoyable so far, and thank you for having me today.
Awesome. Thank you.
then, as you know or have experienced tonight, we're still working on a solution for Zoom to work seamlessly. It's been kind of like trying to fill a round hole with a square peg. But we got some, I think, exciting news So a meeting that the mayor and I were in on Friday, it sounds like the city of Victoria has kind of solved this riddle. And so Vicky, Brenda Good, and I are going to be meeting with Dana and some folks at the city of Victoria City Hall on Wednesday. And they have a different vendor. So we've kind of hit a pause on with Marco, and we're going to look at what systems they have and hopefully be able to integrate some pieces. I did also hear from some colleagues that the information that we received regarding the use of Zoom is slightly different. And I haven't been able to verify this, but apparently there's an accommodation made for, I think, up to 2 or 3 meetings a year where a council member can participate via Zoom and not have their location be accessible to the public.
Really?
So I'm going to try to find that and then report that back. So I think we're making some progress there. Aaron Smith and Dan Lannis met with the school district last week to talk about the building expansion for Carver Elementary. So we're already working with them. Just wanted to let you know, and I think you've seen it in a previous update, but we're going to be installing a concrete pad in Gazebo Park. I don't have the exact date, but for some permanent picnic tables in the park. So the pad is going to be going in, and then I think we're expecting the picnic tables in another week or 2. So I think a nice area. I know we've had some issues with picnic tables being moved in different locations, but these will be located right by the kiosk and gazebo, and I think it'll be a nice element considering some of the new businesses that will be coming to the downtown. And then finally, and I shared some correspondence with the council related to state aid. So there is a possibility that we could be the financial kind of manager interest in that 6th Street project. The county would prefer us to be that. And so the interesting nugget, just kind of for full transparency for those that are watching, is the Met Council typically will provide through their demographics office or demographer an estimated population of the city every May. Because last year was 2020, they're relying on the 2020 census to provide that information. However, to probably no surprise, that information is being delayed due to COVID. And so we've been having ongoing conversations with the Met Council, sharing our concerns that we're at a pivotal point, because once we hit 5,000, we're eligible for state aid. So we've been having a conversation with the state aid office, ourselves, Carver County, et cetera. So we've been told to be assured that we won't miss out on that Met Council is working with state aid. I think Carver County will be involved with the folks at Bolton and Mink. So it might be kind of a circuitous route, but we'll get there. We'll get the funding. It's just going to be a few more hurdles to jump to get to that spot. So happy to answer questions on these items or anything that you're looking for an update on.
Any questions for Brett?
I have 2 questions. For that local road improvement with the county, do we pay them an administrative fee?
Typically, yes. So like we pay an administrative fee on the
1.5%,
Jonathan
2%.
Carver Parkway project as well. So there's some contract administration that we'd have to pay them typically, and I would assume that'd be the case. So it's in our best interest to try to keep that local, if you will.
Okay. And then when you mentioned the picnic tables in Gazebo Park, with the concrete pad, does that mean the picnic tables would be secured and
Correct.
they can't be moved? Okay.
So so we ordered it's a total of 3 picnic tables that are, I would say, more consistent with kind of the historic Carver. So they're not going to be what you see out there in all of our parks. It looks like wood, but it's a composite material. So I think they'll look pretty sharp down there.
Sounds good. No other questions? And I don't have any council updates.
Okay, we're not there yet, but I'll remember that.
I do have a request for update. Do we have an update from the county on the Rachio water irrigation monitoring system? I don't remember what it was called.
Yep.
And when we're gonna be able to offer
I know
that
Chad's been working with that group. Chad, do you want to jump in here?
as I water my lawn again tonight.
I do. I contacted Madeline with Carver County, and she was working on the final drafts of the agreement with the city. And then all we have to do is designate a certain dollar amount towards the program. So that should be, I would say, I can touch base with her again this week, probably in the next week or two.
Okay. I was just thinking about it as it's been unseasonably warm and dry, and watering my lawn and thinking, gosh, I could really use that. So, yeah, just want to make sure we try to get that out earlier in the summer. We can. Okay, that was my only question.
Brett, the only question that I have for you is with those picnic tables. I bet you didn't think that that would be the topic that you got so many questions about, but are they accessible? Is there, with the pad, will a wheelchair be able to swing in there and there's room for somebody to?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. That is it for me. Moving ahead to council updates. Lori does not have one. Joy, what do you got?
Do you want me to talk about the climate caucus?
Yes.
Or do you want me to wait until?
Oh,
we have
about
one?
if somebody wants to do it?
Yes.
I
can
well,
hold it till our next meeting.
let's do that.
That's
That's
fine.
not really an official meeting,
Well, yeah, I know.
but it would,
And it's
yeah.
only a monthly thing, so
Okay,
it's okay to wait.
okay.
It's okay to wait.
Just, why don't you tee it up though?
I-
and mention it since
Okay.
we just talked about it.
So currently, I participate in a city's climate caucus that was put together by some different elected officials. Its goals are influencing state policies and regulations to help cities and accelerate learning, spread of best practices and policy ideas around climate. So it's targeted at elected officials. However, there's a fair amount of city staffs as well that participate. It's got a really robust participation from across the state, I would say. They meet once a month and are really building essentially presentations, links, information for cities. And so I've been participating in that, but I'm struggling with the time commitment. So I would like to offer it up to anybody else on the council or staff who are interested in participating in it. So you can ask about that again.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, I do have a couple quick bullets on Southwest Transit. They are really interestingly working to launch a park and fly option out of the Southwest Transit building in Eden Prairie. That would be a really interesting option where you could park for up to 14 nights and then take their transit service to the airport. So that will be another new offering coming soon. The Prime ridership continues to increase. They're actually at 60% of pre-pandemic levels, so that's pretty hefty recovery. And they are also now starting to revive some of the services they had pre-pandemic, like services to the Twins games. I understand they're going to support us on Steamboat Days. And they're looking at some other community events and things like that, just getting really back into it as those events are starting to happen. So, all good.
Have they opened the buses up to full capacity?
Yes, they did that at the end of May.
Okay.
Yep. That's it, I got.
Okay, all right. I have a little bit of a laundry list. Brent alluded to it, but last Friday we had the community leaders meeting. That is the one that is the city manager, administrator, and the mayors from each of the 4 communities that's in the school district. And they talked about both the closure of East Union Elementary, but the expansion of Carver Elementary, which I think is really exciting. It is going to be the largest elementary school in the district.
Oh, wow.
And it's, we have all seen what Carver Elementary has done for the city of Carver. So it's good to see that they're continuing to expand that and grow that. Last Monday on Memorial Day, I participated in the Memorial Day celebrations with the American Legion and the VFW, where we went around to a bunch of cemeteries. I think it was like 7 cemeteries, all in the Carver and Chaska area, starting out at East Union and going to St. Nick's, and then up on Mount Hope, and that was a really great ceremony. They have a bigger celebration in Veterans Park in Chaska at the end of kind of the tour of the cemeteries, if you will. So that was really great. Also, since the last meeting, I had coffee with the folks at Carver Ridge, which was really fun to do and get in there. I have been super excited to get in there and meet those folks ever since they opened and then kind of quickly closed because of the pandemic last year. So a lot of interest in traffic and roads. Lots of questions about 6th Street and questions about the Jonathan Carver Parkway project. So really good to meet with those folks. We had a Carver Business Alliance meeting a couple weeks ago, which was our first in-person meeting with that group in well over a year. So again, it's good to bring folks back face to face. Last week, I met with Nate and Aaron Royce, who are the new owners of 120 West Broadway, and they are really making an investment in that building. They were like, "Do you want to see the building?" And they opened the door. The floor is gone. You can't walk. You physically can't walk into the building unless you wanted to kind of crawl in and go into the basement. So it is amazing the work that they are doing and the investment that they're making in our community. So if you are not following them on Instagram, their Carver Country collab, you need to be, because they're sharing all the pictures on there of their renovation of the building. And they also did a really cool, super creative business reveal yesterday, kind of like a baby gender reveal, and officially announced that it's going to be a coffee shop. So super excited to have a coffee shop again in downtown Carver. Super excited about what they're going to be whipping out for coffee, drinks, and pastries if their food is as creative as this reveal was. So super excited for that. Let's see, a couple more things. Last week, Vincent Real Estate issued a press release about the fact that the Meadows at Spring Creek has sold out. And that's really good and not surprising. But what was super terrific about the press release is what they said in it, and I want to read their quote. The city of Carver was amazing to work with when it came to bringing the Meadows at Spring Creek housing development to their beautiful community. Carver is no longer a well-kept secret. It is such a beautiful area and close to everything. The people are incredible. And now we have been able to provide over 150 families with a beautiful place to live and now call Carver home. This is the kicker. The credit goes to the much deserving city folks, residents, and skilled workers for making this a reality. So the work that they're doing with the Brents, the Nicks, the Aarons, the Chads of our community, the Vickies, everybody, I just thought it was really, really cool to see that in a press release, to have such high praise. So really good job for everybody on the staff side to get that work done, and appreciate it. Let's see, just a couple more things. Tomorrow, and it's a secret, but I'm comfortable in sharing it because I doubt that she's watching. Tomorrow I am going up to Carver Elementary. It is June Johnson's very last day of school, and it will be June Johnson Day in the city of Carver. So there's a proclamation that Vicky has helped me with. So we'll do that, and we're going to surprise her. So that'll be fun and exciting tomorrow morning. I wanted to thank the Lions for their donations. We had it in our consent agenda for tonight, but they gave us some significant donations that are going to be put to good use in the city of Carver. And then finally, I just wanted to share, and imagine, because I made Dan Lanas promise that he would never bring up speed bumps ever again, and here I am. But I've heard from two folks. I shared the one from Spring Creek, but now I've heard from the west side of JCP with folks from Oak Tree who are anticipating, and rightly so, I think, seeing increased traffic and saying, when does our speed bump get installed? Where is it going? So I said, we've got really great folks from our city engineer to our sheriff's deputies, and they're going to monitor the situation. So everybody's a little anxious about what this full closure is going to mean to their neighborhoods and super, super, super residential streets. So just kind of wanted to bring that forth. And I know that you guys are going to be on there monitoring speed like the traffic cops you are. So that is it for me, I think. Yeah, that was a long enough list. That is it for me.
Was there a request to speed bump area on our website?
A button.
A little
Yeah,
button for
no
that?
kidding. Yeah.
Request a speed bump in front of your house? Just kidding.
That sounds like Clarissa. Oh, all right. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn unless somebody else has anything.
No. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Councilmember McKnight,
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember Sayer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. We'll see you in a couple weeks.